For example, between October 7 and January 7 ADL, there were 3,283 incidents, including 50 assaults. There were also 553 incidents of vandalism. The numbers coming in are higher than anything on the ADL record. So we should feel good that we are heading toward a record year. And everyone likes to make a record. So we're gonna go for a record year. There's always a question of how one defines anti-Semitic activity. And I want to acknowledge that, and it's a little bit fuzzy, but the numbers are going up steadily. To go along with this, a news release. South Africa is bringing Israel before The Hague on charges of genocide. Okay? So Israel is going to be, is now accused before the National Public Diplomacy Directorate. And it's called, website, October 7, 2023, Hamas Massacre, Documentation of Crimes Against Humanity. Israel has designated Justice Barak to represent it before The Hague, a highly regarded former retired Supreme Court justice. But look forward to news coming out of The Hague daily documenting all of Israel's crimes against humanity. Any question or comment, or shall I just continue with all the news that makes us happy, including the Big Mac? Okay, please, Steve.
I'm not familiar with the court's procedures. Can Israel at least raise all of the crimes of Hamas?
No, I don't believe so. I am certainly not an attorney, let alone not an international attorney, let alone not one who deals with this. But they are being accused before a court of crimes against humanity. Showing that other people do bad things is not much of a defense. So, I mean, that's me.
I'm not even as a defense, but at least as context, and to at least have them, less of this would happen if they could equally at least.
That's not what's going to happen in front of The Hague. Israel's expecting to get brutalized. Okay, so that's God love the justice system, and we're in good shape. Now, what's going on in Gaza? Apparently, Hamas no longer is in charge of the northern Gaza. You remember that during the stages of the Israeli response, Israel cut Gaza in half, went from Israel to the Mediterranean and separated the two halves. Israel then went in and launched serious attacks against the northern Gaza. The report from Israel is basically, though not pacified, northern Gaza is no longer under the military control of Hamas. So we look to what's left. And it's a huge task. Khan Yunis is the center of Hamas activity in the southern part of Gaza. And it is far from pacified. The fighting is difficult, and Hamas, when you are fighting on behalf of an ideology, I think you fight better. I think Hamas in southern Gaza is fighting for an ideology. The number of people who die, from my perspective, and I think it's pretty universal, is irrelevant. It's an ideology. They're driving an ideology. They want the ideology to win. And that, the rest of the sentence is, at no matter what cost. Period. So, Risa and I were in a discussion last night. It just doesn't matter. You can't appeal to Hamas and say, look at the terrible losses you've suffered. Because from Hamas's perspective, ideologically, these are martyrs in defense of the ultimate goal of destroying Israel. Period. That's what they want. Most occasions when Israel was fighting Palestinians and not Hamas, there was a limit to how much the Palestinians would suffer. Because how many people, they don't. Hamas, we have to stop pretending that if we inflict more damage, they will then back down. That's not going to happen. We're just not going to see that. So, by the way, not so different from Afghanistan, not so different from Iraq. The fighting ideology. Any comment about that before I chug ahead? I am going to. Oh,
yeah,
Seth.
I would say, I think with Hamas, it's not just ideology, it's also that they believe they will be killed. Like if you're a member of Hamas and you keep fighting, you're going to be killed. So, there's really, I think they feel like they've got no choice. And maybe it's because of that ideology. So I think I agree that fighting them more, you're not going to change their minds by any means. But if you do eliminate their power and control, the ideology may still be there among a lot of people, but there is a difference to not having them be in power. And the northern part of Gaza in particular was their power center before. And I think it is a major accomplishment to have them not be in charge of northern Gaza.
Yes, yes, and yes. Totally agree with you, Seth. When Hamas no longer is militarily viable in the south, you are correct, scarily so, that the ideology of Hamas has not been defeated. And it will not go away. They're talking now that in Gaza, there are 60, 70,000 in Hebrew, Pekidim, government officials, whatever, the people who keep the machinery going. These people are still being paid by the PA, by the Palestine Authority. They have survived under what, 9, 10 years of Hamas murderous control, but they keep their nose to the grindstone, and you got to get a paper stamped, and you got to get a this or a that. They run the place. The question is going to be, if these people can be activated to continue their work when Hamas is defeated, does that make them automatic targets for Hamas revenge? And that's on the one hand, we're trying to build on that group. On the other hand, are they committing suicide by helping a post-Hamas regime? Okay, now, language. We all love language. I am now going to teach what may be a new word. Are you ready? A new word. The new word published first on a neutral website called Free Palestine. The new word is gaining currency in the conversations in the press. The new word is Israeled. 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 Israeled is now defined as the act of taking something that is not yours and then kicking out the rightful owner. I'm not seeing a lot of smiles with this education piece here. Israeled, as in, someone asked to share my table at a restaurant and then asked me to leave the table because they had a meeting. That's Israeled. Not smiling. Okay. I mean, okay. It's disgusting, but it's effective. It is that. Now, let's shift the scene from the tunnels in southern Gaza to the tunnels in southern Lebanon. What's happening there? Have you been following that? What have they found? What have they found in southern Lebanon? What they have found is a larger complex of tunnels, more sophisticated than those in Gaza. And some of those tunnels run into Israel. So while the border, northern border, Israel and Lebanon, while that border is heating up, Israel may confront the need to go into Lebanon to destroy yet another network of very dangerous tunnels. Very sophisticated, very dangerous. No one feels good about that. And I have one more tunnel story for us. This is like the McDonald's thing, but it's a tunnel story. I'm going to give an address, and you're going to tell me what it is. 770 Eastern Parkway. What's that? What's that? Seth?
It's Chabad's world headquarters.
It's the world headquarters of Lubavitch. Correct. 770 Eastern Parkway. It is obviously a sacred site. Those who maintain and control the physical headquarters have been trying for years to expand their footprint, and they have been denied for. No one assumes anti-Semitic. Just, you can't necessarily tear down all the houses near you and build another whatever. So they have been denied. This week, a tunnel was discovered between the headquarters building and an adjacent building, with the clear intention of expanding the tunnel, constructing, and taking by force of presence the property that they want to take. The police, the city, sent in cement trucks this week. By the way, do you know the difference between concrete and cement? What is the difference between concrete and cement? Steve?
Concrete also has mixed in like small pieces of rock or gravel.
Yeah, but anyone else? Water. When you mix in the water, one changes to the other. Concrete. You buy bags of concrete, you put water in, you pour it out, you got cement. Okay, now, they sent cement trucks in to fill the tunnel. And a group of, the New York Times referred to them as bochers, yeshiva bochers, the teenage students of Chabad, blocked the effort, threw themselves at the cement trucks, and broke open a wall between the established synagogue of 770 and the tunnel. They started doing what they wanted to do. These young people were carried off to jail. Now, how did they find out that they should do this? You know that Chabad, by the way, let me be clear. Chabad is one of the great outreach organizations for college campuses for Jewish kids. Period. It is that. But Chabad is divided in two. One is normal mainstream Chabad, and one is Messianic Chabad. Messianic Chabad believes, one, the last Rebbe didn't die. Two, the Rebbe is the Messiah. Three, that the Messiah is communicating God's will to them. So we have a sect of Judaism actively celebrating the living presence of a dead Messiah. Risa, you have your hand up. Is that still there?
My question is, the other...
Can't hear you.
Why?
I don't know.
I'm not muted.
Okay, blame me. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so I was curious about the other building because one of the reports said that it was a defunct mikveh, and I'm wondering if that building actually belongs to Chabad.
Apparently, that building does belong to Chabad, and yes, apparently it was a defunct mikveh.
And do we know how old the tunnel is? I didn't see that.
It's fairly recent, but it's a real tunnel, so they've been at it a couple of years.
Okay.
Okay, so tunnel building. And every time I get involved, and I do, with conversations about who is doing the most for college kids. Is it the reform movement? No. Is it the conservative movement? No. Is it Hillel? Yes.
No.
Who said no? Someone said no. I heard a no. Who said no? Confess. I didn't hear no? I did hear no.
I heard no.
I heard no too. How many
I
heard
think-
no? I heard no. Okay. Okay. Hillel, yes. Alpha Epsilon Pi, yes. And Chabad, yes. Those are the three. And people say we should support Chabad. I am literally torn in two. How do I make sure that my support for Chabad goes to their college outreach and some of it doesn't get siphoned off to the Messiah is both dead and alive and talking to us? So that's a bit of a problem. But we have to live with that. Any comment? Or we move on? Okay, there's so much good stuff. I'd like your impressions of J Street as a Zionist organization. Okay? Okay, and I'm going to take multiple comments. No long speeches, Steve. Just tell me. You're muted. Oh my God, Steve.
I could do this in just like 2 words. Anti-Zionist.
So you see J Street as anti-Zionist.
I do.
Okay, would you like, I'm going to give you another 2 sentences. Would you please elaborate briefly?
Although they support a 2-state solution, everything else they do seems to align with the ultra progressives in the Democratic Party. And it is not helpful either. Actually, I don't think it's helpful for Jews. It's certainly not helpful for the state of Israel.
Okay, thank you for that. Do we have any other responses to J Street? I'd like to hear. Seth, you laughed. I'm not going to let you get off the line. You laughed. Why did you laugh about J Street?
I think J Street, to me, I don't consider them anti-Zionist, but I consider them kind of one step away from it. So to me, J Street, and maybe I would put Peace Now sort of in this category, are they're pro-peace, they're pro-Israel, but J Street, I think, has been especially before October 7th, J Street has been like the leadership of the anti-Israel arguments in the political mainstream in the United States. They've taken that, although they say it's from a position of love of Israel and love of peace.
Any other thoughts on J Street, reactions when you hear nothing? Okay, Merle.
I have family who were raised conservative. They have no affiliation with Reform, Conservative, Orthodox, anything, but they have found something spiritual in J Street, at least in New York. I don't know about anywhere else. That's my only contact or my only knowledge of where people are coming from with J Street.
Thank you, Ray.
Thank you. I'm going to, before I share my impressions, simply also observe that I have not followed a lot of these organizations very closely. So the people on this thread who already disagree with me, please do not pillory me too hard today.
We don't pillory. We are a loving community. Just when you're wrong, we point it out. But go ahead.
My impression, based on admittedly limited exposure, is that J Street is striking a constructive balance. I do not find them anti-Zionist. I do not find them making arguments that undermine the legitimacy of the existence of Israel as a Jewish state. From what I have seen, again, which isn't enough because I'm not a responsible enough citizen, from what I have seen, they seem to be navigating a pretty responsible channel in making both the assertion that it's off the table to question Israel's legitimacy, but Israel has responsibilities to comport itself both in the current conflict and in the occupation previously better and more fairly and more transparently than it's been. So my limited impression of them is I find them in a good neighborhood. I have not yet found reason to have trouble with them, and what I have heard often points to steps that I would agree that Israel is compelled to take now to be more responsible.
We're going to allow a moment for vicious rebuttal, if anyone wishes that. If not, I will offer my own limited impression. Anybody? Anybody else? Okay. Somehow did I get kicked off the picture? I love looking at myself. Where?
You're there.
Am I there? Okay, good. Okay, that makes me feel that I exist. Okay, now, some of my best friends are in J Street. That's a pretty rotten way to introduce a topic. J Street used to be pilloried for being an extreme left-wing expression of what they called Zionism. And then the progressive movement within the Democratic Party grew up and established positions that smaller Jewish organizations have adopted further to the left of J Street. And those organizations like Jews for Peace and whatever, these groups are highly suspect as Zionist organizations. J Street, by virtue of living in a changing neighborhood, can you believe that? By virtue of living in a changing neighborhood, J Street appears to be more moderate than the real left-wing and progressive groups, which are in many ways outspokenly anti-Israel. And, for example, speak to a one-state solution as the ideal, which clearly would bring an end to a Jewish state. Okay? Now, in the last month, there has been a serious discussion about ceasefire. J Street has refused to embrace a call for ceasefire. Americans for Peace Now have embraced a call for a ceasefire. Americans for Peace Now and J Street used to be political partners. We're going to have to leave it there. J Street sees itself as severely critical of Israel, supportive of a Jewish state, demanding of a change in government, despising AIPAC, and fighting for the good angels. Let me just stop there. I don't want to do a speech on this. And anyone who has a reaction, please come on in. Come on in. And if not, we can move forward, at least to point out that I had lunch yesterday. It's very hard to keep track of my schedule. I had lunch yesterday with the chair of the rabbinic cabinet of J Street. And I said something nice along with please pass the salt of, well, are you going to follow your friends, Americans for Peace Now, and embrace a call for a ceasefire? And I got a table-pounding no, never. Okay, Steve.
I just want to say, as always, if I ever looked at their website, it was like I agreed with 99.9% of what I said. The problem, and again, it's probably not leadership, but I believe much of the membership does not feel as strongly as what you've represented and do shift more to the positions of some of these more right groups. And that's the nature of maybe more of the people than the philosophy of the organization. But when it put it all together, that's where it matters.
Okay. That's fair. Any other comments about that? I continue to believe. Let me read something. American for Peace Now, left-wing pro-Israel, is calling for an end to the war. The first American Zionist group to do so after 3 months of fighting. Quote, continuing this devastating war poses unacceptable risks for Israel, for Gazan civilians, and the entire region. For the sake of the security and well-being of civilians in Israel and in Gaza, the Biden administration must push Israel to bring about an immediate cessation of hostilities and pivot from war to peacemaking. Up until now, the only Jewish groups to call for a ceasefire have been anti-Zionist or non-Zionist. Any other comment? And we're going to move on. This is, the Jewish community is being ripped apart. Being ripped apart. And it almost became funny for me to see J Street forced into a more moderate position only because more extreme Jewish positions are emerging on the progressive and far left. And that's what's happening. And trust me when I say that many college up to 30-year-old Jews can be found among those who accept the far left, more progressive positions. Okay, all right. Now, having taught you, are you remembering Israel? I want you to hold on to that word as a very important word. Let's go to our college study. Tell me about the president of UPenn. Out. Tell me about the president of Harvard. Out. Tell me about the president of MIT. In. What's going on? What's going on is really serious. What's going on? Because this is going to come and slap a lot of us right in the face. Any thoughts? Any thoughts? The president of MIT is a woman named Sally Kornbluth. Sally Kornbluth, PhD, et cetera, one of the three presidents who testified before Congress and couldn't say proclaiming genocide against Jews is not a violation of the university code of conduct or something. So why is she still in position for however long she may be? Any thoughts? Steve?
First of all, she wasn't as adamant. She wasn't grilled as much. And the incidents at MIT's campus, as she repeatedly pointed out, when they focused on her very little, did not reach anywhere the extent and volatility that they did at Penn and Harvard. So yes, she's Jewish and is obviously looking out for Jewish students. I just thought, in fact, at the whole hearing, I felt like she was an unnecessary appendage.
Okay. Anything else that you have read or learned about President Kornbluth? She apparently has a very strong previous record of openly identifying with the Jewish community and being supportive of Jewish organizations on campus. So she has a track record. She has that.
I mean,
Pardon, Seth?
Oh, I was going to say, I mean, Claudine Gay, I think it was the plagiarism accusations kind of were really tipped the balance in the end.
And her fall and what happened at UPenn connected.
The Penn professor, I thought was worse than Claudine Gay, the president. I mean, she was like smirking, her attitude, her whole attitude, and she sort of had this history before October 7th of really treating, of taking accusations of anti-Semitism not seriously.
A congressional committee investigating anti-Semitism at Harvard gave the school, this is just now, a 2-week deadline to produce documents, including the board's text messages, information on Jewish enrollment trends, and foreign donations. This report was both in the Wall Street Journal and the Harvard Crimson. Ray.
Thank you. I did just want to also put on the table, because I think it adds a little complication and nuance also about the difference among these university presidents. In the case of Claudine Gay, the Harvard president, it wasn't exactly an apples to apples situation just about their comportment, about what their policy about these speech against Jews or Jewish students was, because in her case, now we can certainly also speculate why this happened, but in her case, allegations that were demonstrated correct, and perhaps also debatable what the stakes were, but there were allegations that were shown to be true of President Gay's having performed repeated acts of plagiarism in her work. And ultimately, the purported reason for her announcing her resignation was actually not related to her statements about what's acceptable speech regarding Jews, but was more directly related to the demonstrated allegations of the plagiarism. So I do think that that is meaningful for us too.
It is. I'm going to raise something which we're not going to resolve, but 3 letters, D-E-I. What is D-E-I? Someone want to help me with that? Come on, we just have Steve and we have, let's get a couple more people. What's DEI? Sylvia, excuse me, Sylvia, do you know DEI? What is it?
Diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the right-wing folks are saying that that's dirty liberalism, and everybody else is worried about students feeling left out or not accepted for various reasons because they don't fit into some mold or other. They can't do affirmative action anymore, so they've called it something else, but basically that's what it is.
When I say it's extremely controversial, that's an understatement, right? It is extremely controversial. Claims that Dr. Gay received her appointment because of DEI. She became president. How is that so? African-American woman. She's only published 1 book, and she's published a bunch of articles. It's very much not typical of the presidents of prestigious academic institutions. And the question was, did the search committee intentionally overlook more qualified candidates in order to fulfill the pressures on campus for meeting DEI standards? Remember what I said? That's a question. And that's what the congressional committee is going, they're going to look at the notes, the records, and they're going to come up with an answer. I was asked the other day, Stan, are you a colonialist? I found that, first of all, the answer has to be yes, I am a colonialist. My family came from Europe. All those who came from Europe and pushed the Native Americans, or the Indians, as they now prefer to be called, off their territory are colonialists. Who in the Western world is not a colonialist? Waves of people occupied, pushed, took, shoved, conquered, destroyed. So the first easy answer is, are you a colonialist? Yeah, I'm a colonialist. But that's not really what they meant, right? And I talk to people who are closing out PhDs, and they talk about their prospects of finding a job. The people I talk with are white Jewish kids, young adult, whatever they are. I admit that. They said the chance of a straight, white, male Jew getting a competitive position in today's academic environment, they say to me, is almost nil. That's their perspective. Did I do a scientific study? I wish I could say I did. I didn't. But there is a real feeling in some places in academia that if you are a white, straight, male Jew, you fall to the bottom of the heap, along with our good friends, the Asians, who seem to be falling down the ladder as well. Along with this discussion about the presidents of these high-quality institutions, is what's the role of meritocracy in America? And I want to leave that as not something which, believe me, that I'm going to, pontificate about, but just to point out that meritocracy in many quarters is a cover term for advancing the colonialists over the disadvantaged others. Howard.
Okay. I just wanted to mention that Commentary Magazine, which may be a magazine that not too many people here read, but it is a Jewish magazine with a long history, has a really nice article, excellent article, very convincing, that explains how DEI, Black Lives Matter, and intersection.
What happened? Am I cut off? Can you hear me? You can.
Yeah,
You can.
we can
you
hear
can,
you. I think he froze.
Oh, okay. Harv. Then we'll get back to Howard if he unfreezes.
I just want to mention that the past president and the current president
Reference right
of
here, but
Northwestern
the,
University.
Okay, Howard, hold a second. You froze. We moved on, but we will get
Oh.
right back to you. Promise.
Okay, the current president and the past president of Northwestern University were white males, Jewish. Just want to put that out there.
Okay, what's going on, Risa? I'm getting killed.
no, what's happening?
I'm sorry.
What happened?
Okay, I'm just getting my phone interfered with
I turned it off as fast as I could.
If I could find my phone, I would.
I had it.
Well,
I had it. I turned it off, but I had to find it.
okay, while we are getting mildly hysterical about all the electronic interference, so please help me again. Harv, you said that two presidents of Northwestern.
Yeah, the current president and the past president of Northwestern, white Jewish males. That's just the fact.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, going back, Howard, can we connect to you?
I hope so. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, cool. No, I don't have the exact reference to I don't remember the author, but it's in Commentary Magazine. A very good and very convincing, I think, case showing that DEI, Black Lives Matter, intersectionality are all really very closely related, come from the same ideology, done by the same people, and I think it's really interesting and people should be informed about it. I'm sorry I don't have the reference.
Okay, I think only out of fairness to mention, Commentary is a very seriously conservative journal. And
But
that doesn't mean to put it down, it's just simply a descriptive.
But it is a very certainly conservative journal, but it's also a very Jewish magazine with a very long and distinguished history of excellent
Yes.
commentary. And if you go through and weed out some of the extreme right-wing stuff from it today, I think there's some really good writers in it. And the person who wrote this one, who I forgot who it is an example. But
I'm going to look for it.
Brett Stevens is a good one. Yeah.
I will look for it because that's a good reference. They have high quality writing, and there is, a tendency, an approach. Risa.
The conversation that we had about colonialism and DEI, what upset me the most was the comment that they can't get hired if the new PhDs are having trouble getting hired if they're white and male. What upset me is that they're not being accepted into the doctoral programs at all. And if they were accepted into the doctoral programs, got the PhD and didn't get a particular job at a particular academic thing, there are other things they can do. And they're being denied the opportunity to have that degree. That was upsetting to me. It's like the rabbis not being accepted to rabbinical school because there are no pulpits. And what happened? The pulpits fell away to a certain degree, and they found a whole new way to be rabbis. The same thing could happen with these new PhDs. So I was very upset about that.
Thank you. Sachs.
I looked at some PhD programs about 10 years ago, and I had 5 friends who have PhDs who talked me out of it. And they said, because there are too many PhDs. There are more PhDs than there are positions. So I have friends who are Black, white, Jewish, Asian, Hispanic, and they have PhDs and they cannot find it. The problem is there are more PhDs than jobs. And so for people to feel like it's just on them, I disagree with.
Well taken. Well taken. Anyone else a comment? DEI is not going away. They're going to be fighting in the trenches about this and about admissions policies to graduate programs and placement in universities. They're going to be asking all kinds of questions. And I'm going to suspect that our country will experience a readjustment. I don't know what direction it will take, but this stuff is not going to disappear. Going on to good news that fits with McDonald's, France's new Prime Minister, Gabriel Attal, A-T-T-A-L, is being celebrated the world over. What makes Gabriel Attal such an interesting person?
He's young.
He is the youngest person ever to be Prime Minister of France. Yay! Okay, I think he's like 34, 35, whatever. Okay. Next, he is the first person to be Prime Minister of France who is openly gay. Yay. Okay, I'm fine. And then he is the first. No, actually, he's not the first. He also has a Jewish father. So you can imagine that the Jewish press is really taking off after this guy and making him immediately a hero. He was raised not Roman Catholic, but in a Serbian Catholic, some other form of Catholic expression. And fine. But we should be aware that we now have a new hero in the world. Now let's go on.
Oh, Rabbi,
Yes.
I found the reference. Actually, I left something out also. It's interesting. This is an article by Wilfred Riley, who's a professor of political science, who's also African American, and it's called "What Free Palestine and Black Lives Matter Have in Common." So I left that part out, that Free Palestine, but I would add that DEI fits in there too, and it's discussed in the article. What Free Palestine and Black Lives Matter have in common, and what they have in common is the same ideology, the same people, the same tactics. Yeah.
Okay. Now you're making it necessary for me to buy the whole magazine. And I resent that, but I will handle it. We have to stop now. Risa and I watched a podcast, our favorite place, I think, Jews United for Democracy and Justice, every Wednesday, usually 5 to 6 p.m. This was on Tuesday, whatever. Dennis Ross. If you have access to JUDJ and can look at prior programs, the program yesterday featuring Dennis Ross was stunning. He's bright, he's experienced, and he tells it as he understands it. And he understands a lot, not only an ambassador, but he was heavily involved in the Oslo Accords and all kinds of other stuff. I would travel anywhere to listen to Dennis Ross speak. If you have access to JUDJ, Jews United for Democracy and Justice, in 2 weeks, I'm going to speak a little bit about some of the things he had to say. But I just recommend that you look at that. So while I'm out trying to find Commentary Magazine, you should be out trying to find Jews United for Democracy and Justice. Reese and I have been watching it. How long, Reese? I can't hear you. Okay, but
Started early in COVID.
okay, so it could be 21, something like that.
Yeah.
And it's almost like Shabbos. Friday evening services, Wednesday at 5 o'clock, judge. It's really, really good. Seth, oh, no, I have to take this down. All right. Seth gave me
It's both. It's the commentary link and also the Jews United for Democracy link.
Super. You're welcome. Come back again. That's great. Have a wonderful week, everybody. Good to see you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I may drop by McDonald's. I mean, who knows? Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
great week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye-bye.